Deep Space Nine is a fan favorite show amongst superfans of the Star Trek universe. It's beloved for its unique cast of characters, its emphasis on family and redemption, and its fearless analysis of the effects of war on all parties involved. It's been decades since the last episode aired, and I am finally ready to go through the series for the very first time. Join me as I share my most and least favorite episodes, character highlights, and honest reactions to this epic show. Let's get started. Hello and welcome to the Savage Stream, the weekly live stream where we talk all things Star Trek. And today I am continuing my journey through Deep Space Nine with a breakdown of my highs and lows from season 2. So I'm going to share 3 of my favorite episodes from this season and 3 of my least favorite episodes from this season. Let me know in the chat what your favorite episode from season 2 was. Let me know in the comments or let me know in the chat. And let me know if any of them match. That'd be interesting. And I'd also love to hear why you love that episode. Especially, I find it interesting when there's episodes that didn't necessarily grab me or episodes that I just straight up didn't like. And other people are like, oh no, it's great because of all these reasons. And it helps me, even if not to change my mind, it just gives me a different perspective. So all I ask is no spoilers because I am still making my way through Deep Space Nine and I want to enjoy as much as I can without spoilers since the show's been off air for quite some time. So I'm going to start with my 3 least favorite, and then I will share my 3 favorites so we can end on a high note. And then I'm going to talk about some of the things that I have found surprising so far as I continue to watch Deep Space Nine. Now I have that in my notes, but I may forget that I want to talk about that. So if I do, please remind me. Hello to everyone who's watching live. Hello to everyone who's watching on the replay. If you are watching on the replay, there are timestamps below, so you can jump ahead at any time. Okay, let's get started with the first episode on my list of my 3 least favorite episodes from season 2. Season 2, Episode 23, Crossover. While returning from the Gamma Quadrant, Kira and Bashir cross into a parallel universe where a brutal alliance of Klingons, Cardassians, and Bajorans rule over the Terrans. Kira encounters her ruthless mirror counterpart, the Intendant, who oversees a mining operation on Deep Space Nine. They manage to escape back to their universe, but not before leaving behind a little spark of rebellion amongst the enslaved humans. So I talked about this episode last week, and I really wish I would have saved it for this week because I hate this episode. I hate everything about this episode. And I feel like I shared a lot of the reasons why last week. But since this week is officially the season 2 breakdown, this is the place where those complaints should have gone. But before I get into the complaints, let me say the things that I liked about this episode. The outfits were different. I actually like when there's characters that we know and love who get to play different people. I think that's always interesting. And this episode was episode 23 of season 2. So we've had 40 some episodes with these characters already before they start to act really weird. So I think that's kind of the perfect place to put an episode like this, where we can really see the differences between Prime Universe, whoever, and Mirror Universe, whoever. So I do like that. I do like when the characters get to mix it up. For the most part, there are a few episodes in Deep Space Nine so far where I very much don't like it, where I'm just like, I don't like the characters they're playing. But in general, I like when we get to see characters we know and love be a little bit different and play something different and act different. And the other thing I like about the Mirror Universe in general is that like all the good guys are bad guys or whatever. That's just kind of fun because the only time you see good guys playing bad guys in shows like this is if there's some kind of brain virus or some kind of alien that's taken over their body or something like that. So I like this idea that there's just another version of them out there in the world doing shenanigans, out there in the universe, in the parallel universe, out there doing shenanigans. So that's what I liked about it. Now, what I didn't like about it, pretty much everything. I hate that they turned Major Kira into a sex kitten, which is something I mentioned a lot last week for anybody who saw last week's. But I really hate that they turned her into this mix between a dominatrix and a nymphomaniac. I think it is lazy. And I think it's very low-hanging fruit. And it feels a lot to me like what they did with 7 of 9 in Voyager, how they had her walking around in a painted-on cat suit for all of her time on the show. It's like, and then the times when we see her being human, she has to be like, well, actually, sometimes we see her being human, she's normal. But sometimes we see her being human and she's like super, super sexy. And it's like, we already get it that this is a beautiful person and you want us to think of them as a sex object. Like I already got that from the painted on outfit. I got that, but then to take to turn it into this character who's literally like bending over and leaning over and rubbing herself and wanting to make out with her. Just all of it was too much. It was too much. And I also feel like, which I said last week, but I'm gonna say it again. I also feel like if this was a male character, they never would have gone in this direction. You know, if we were looking at, and I don't even need to come up with examples because it's in this very episode when we see Mirror Cisco and Mirror O'Brien, you know, and even Mirror Garrick, like any of the male characters, they're just different. They don't have to be sex kittens. They can just be different. They could just be bad guys. They could just be evil. And Garrick wasn't that much of a stretch. He was just slightly less charming, but Garrick was pretty much Garrick. But you don't see them being like, oh, hey there, big boy. You know what I mean? Like, you don't see them doing all of this extra stuff, but they constantly do it with the female characters. And it just drives me a little nuts. A lot of my lowest episodes for the next several seasons are going to be for this reason, that they're just like, I don't know, let's just make Kira a sex kitten. I don't know, let's just make Dax a sex kitten. It's like, okay. And I think, and I've heard from some people in the audience, maybe if I was just dying to see a little more sexiness from these characters, this would have just made my day. But I was not dying to see more sexiness. So it just really irritated me. I also feel like this episode was super pointless. Like the whole episode, we just see sexy Kira just kind of bossing people around in a really sexy way and harassing people sexually and harassing her mirror self sexually. And then in the end, there's like a rebellion in the last 2 minutes of the episode. I kid you not. I was watching this episode like, I don't think Prime, Kira, and Bashir are going to make it back. Like there was no, all the way up into the last 2 minutes of the episode, there was like no way for them to escape. There was this little escape plan that Bashir had hatched and he got O'Brien to help him out. And they were caught immediately, like immediately. They were like, okay, I'm going to help you get to the runabout. And they like climb out of Jeffrey's tube and it's like, freeze. They were caught immediately and immediately brought to evil Kira. And so it was just kind of like, it was just a nothing of an episode. Honestly, for me, I did not love it. I will say the next Mirror Universe episode, which I was so sad to find out they were going to do a Mirror Universe episode for every single season until the last season. It was just like, and I felt like now I'm going to be all lulled into this sense of confidence that the episodes are going to be really good. And then bam, I'm going to be hit with the Mirror Universe episode. But I will say the next Mirror Universe episode I liked way better because there was a storyline. You know, there was like Jennifer who came back, which was super interesting because I did not think they were going to bring that character back. And how Cisco deals with it and how he's, you know, I thought that was more of an interesting story than this one, which was literally just like, let's see how sexy we can make Kira. That was the whole episode. And then in the last 2 minutes, they're like, aha, we got out. Okay. And the other thing too, by the way, I don't know this. So let me know in the comments or in the chat about how they did this in TOS, how they ended up in the Mirror Universe. And I'm guessing they went more than once because they're like, it's all Spock's fault that like the Terrans are slaves now. So I'm guessing in TOS, they went to the Mirror Universe more than once, but I don't know how they got there. But here it was like, they got snagged on something on their way through the wormhole. But then in the second Mirror Universe episode, it's all transporters. So they have like this little device and they just like scan it over the transporter and then like push a button and then boop, they're in the next universe. That's pretty neat. I'm actually not complaining about that. I like that idea. But also I feel like we need to like shut this down because like no good is coming from these transports. Like every time people are going from one place to another, it's always bad news. So is there no fix for this? Is there no modulating frequencies we can put into the transporter beam so that way this doesn't happen? I feel like there's just no positive things. And then thinking forward to not Discovery, although Discovery did a lot of Mirror Universe stuff, but thinking to Section 31, where it was like the ultimate Mirror Universe battle or whatever was going on in that movie. I'm just like, yeah, like we need to shut this down. I think the coming back and forth, I don't think that's working for either of us. I don't think either side is benefiting from this swappy-doo. I think it was season 5 Discovery. There was one like little ray of hope where there was a ship from the Mirror Universe full of like Terran refugees, ? And they made it across the something into the Prime Universe and like lived happy lives. So that was like, but the ship that they left behind was a death trap. But the big idea was that these people found refuge. And I think that was a really beautiful story, especially with Mirror Universe. That's always sad or terrible. But But yeah, this first one, the crossover episode, was just trash. I didn't like any of it. I didn't like any part of it. But I will say it had to happen so we could have the follow-up episodes. And I do like that the follow-up Mirror Universe episodes align, you know, that it's not just like a totally different storyline. It's like, well, now that you've had this rebellion, here's what happened to them next. Now that this has happened, here's what happens next. So I actually do like that. I do like that it's like a long-form storytelling thing. And each time we come back to the Mirror Universe, there's another layer. But honestly, if I never see Sex Kitten Kira again for the rest of my life, it'll be too soon. Unfortunately, I have one more Mirror Universe episode to watch, and then I will be done with it. And who knows? Maybe I'll love it. Maybe it'll be my favorite episode for all of season 7. But I have a feeling that that may not be the case. Okay, I'm going to check the chat and then go to my second least favorite episode, which, by the way, they're not in any particular order for my least favorites. And by the way, if you have not yet, be sure to subscribe so that you can come get notified for next week's video where I will be talking about my highs and lows of season 3. Okay, let's check the chat. There's a lot of chat going on. I don't know if you guys love this episode, if you guys like me, hated this episode. So Sela says Quark was the most human of all the Mirror Universe characters. Quark was actually like a good, and actually I like the Quark being kind of a scamp, a lovable scamp with a heart of gold. Like I love when they do those kinds of characters or storylines for him in the Prime universe. So yeah, he was the only one in the Mirror Universe that was normal or like not awful. But then I think he was killed immediately, either in this episode or the next one. So of course he was. Oh yeah, not a Mirror episode fan. And Kira's mirror is creepy. She's super creepy. She is super creepy. The power of Kira's rear end. Exactly. Her outfit was already super duper tight. All they did was make it black leather. And I feel so bad for Nana Visitor, the actress who played that character. I mean, whatever, she did it, so maybe she was fine with it. But I felt uncomfortable looking at her in the outfit. Like I just felt like, like tight, like leather is hot and it sticks to you. It is not comfortable. And you have all these lights and all these cameras and they're telling you to bend over and lick stuff. And I was just like, this is not what, in like me put myself in her shoes. I was just like, this is not what I signed up for. The 90s were not known for their subtlety in TV. No, they were not. I think it's because of the coveted male 18 to 36 demographic. Yeah, probably. But like, she was already beautiful. Like she was already beautiful, already sexy. We didn't need all the extra. In my opinion, we didn't need all the extra. Like we missed it or something. Yes, I really don't like that O'Brien is called Smiley. I don't either, Roberts. I don't either. It's really dumb. And then when Cisco comes back, like in the next season, he's like, you'd better call me Smiley, sir. And he's like, okay, Smiley. I also didn't like Cisco. I didn't like the Mirror Cisco. I don't like his like pirate voice. And I don't know. I don't like anything about it. I want to like it. I didn't like it. Mirror Morn. Was Morn in there? Yes, a bunch of chauvinists running Trek. Or horny writers. I don't even know. Like, I don't know who's to blame, but someone is to blame for the whole situation. Kira's mirror is freaking a sexual predator. Yes, and so uncomfortable to watch. She is a sexual predator to everyone, including herself. There's a scene in this episode in Crossover where Garrick is like, haven't you noticed, to Prime Kira, haven't you noticed she's in love with you? You're all she can talk about. And I'm like, ew. Like I get narcissism, but honestly, if I met Mirror me, I wouldn't want to jump her bones. You know what I mean? Like that would not be the first thing on my mind. That's just weird. You're weird. Like, sexy Kira, you're weird, okay? And in the midst of her predatory acts, she's also like having people beheaded left and right because that's her actual job. It was just weird. It was just a weird choice from the writers to go in that direction, in my opinion. The Mirror Universe returns in Star Trek Online. Ugh, is it fun or is it dumb? Was sad that Spock's revolution was crushed by the Alliance. Yeah, let me know, Sela, because I don't have a lot of reference for TOS stuff. How many times did they go into the Mirror Universe on TOS? And was this the first time we found out that what Spock did was actually a bad thing? Because that's pretty interesting. Loved Bashir trying to appeal to O'Brien's humanity. Yeah, poor Bashir. He was just, I mean, it did work because O'Brien did turn in the end, but then they were immediately caught and he was about to be executed. And I know O'Brien was just like, you know? Okay, so it was a transporter malfunction the first time as well. Mirror Universe in TOS was accidental transport during an ion storm. Gotta watch out for those ion storms. They get you every time. It was the chronotons. That's how you get the mirror universe. This is the best universe the best mirror universe is in Star Trek. Robert, are you telling me that they also do mirror universe in Enterprise? Like, they do this again? Because I was planning to watch Enterprise after I finished Deep Space Nine. But now, I don't know. Do they only do it once? Hopefully they only do it once. In Section 31, they should have let the God Killer, or whatever it was called, explode in the mirror universe. Then it would wipe our memories of there ever having been one. I guess that's true. Okay, let me move past mirror universe in Enterprise. That'll be an Enterprise question. But it's not the chronotons. That's right. Maybe you'll grow a goatee too. I don't mind the goatees. Thank you so much for enjoying the thumbnail that highlights why I hate this episode and probably why other people love this episode. Okay, so this episode is one that made me not want to see any more parallel universe scripts in any Star Trek show. Ick. That was me 100%. Oh, they only did mirror universe one time in Enterprise? Okay. Or was it one time in TOS? Yeah, I feel the same way. After this episode, I was like, I never want to see another mirror universe episode again. And then it was Dustin from the Best of Trek channel who was like, yeah, it happens again. And I was like, oh, and I Googled it. I was like, how many times do I have to do this? And it was like 5 episodes. And I was like, 5 episodes. But like I said, the second version of mirror universe, not as painful as this one. That was pretty pointless. The one time in Enterprise is a 2-parter. Oh, but it wasn't bad. Okay. So something to look forward to. Okay, on that note, let's go to the second episode that's on my low list for season 2. Season 2, Episode 17, Playing God. Dax mentors a young Trill initiate while the station discovers a proto-universe growing in a containment field. As the proto-universe expands, it threatens to destroy the station and possibly the rest of the other universe. The crew eventually ejects the proto-universe into space, allowing it to continue to evolve safely, and more importantly, the Trill initiate gets a second chance to think about whether or not living a joined life is really for him. Yeah, so this episode made the low part of the list because it's just boring. I think I find a lot of Dax-centered episodes kind of boring. Oh, wait, but I forgot to start with what I like about it. Okay, what I like about this episode, we get more backstory about the Trill, which is interesting. I love that they're building out this Trill culture so much. I find it super fascinating. I guess it's the way they build it out with just a bunch of exposition, which, I mean, that's what shows are. Shows are just talking. But the way they built it out, especially in this episode, was just like, it just was not reachable for me. So basically, this initiate comes on and he's like, I have to do everything I can to impress Jadzia so that way she will recommend me to be joined. And his whole thing, though, is like, I wanted anybody but Jadzia because I heard, there's all these horror stories about Curzon Dax and how he was the worst and would always turn down all the initiates, including Jadzia. So Jadzia's like, yeah, Curzon was the worst, and he turned down all these initiates, including me, and he kicked me out of the program, but I fought and I came back, and I'm the only one to ever reapply to the program and get accepted and be joined. So I think it's supposed to be some kind of, honestly, I don't know, but I think it's supposed to be some kind of story of redemption or finding one's true voice or path or something like that, because this initiate, the only reason he wants to join, or what it seems like from what he's saying, is because it was like his father's dying wish. I think his father died. I think it was his father's dying wish for him to become joined. And it was like, this is all I've ever wanted. So he tells that to Jadzia, like, this is why I want to do it, because my father's always wanted this for me. He's been training me for this since I was born. And she's just like, that's not good enough. You have to want to do it for yourself. But the biggest thing is that this initiate is putting a lot of judgment on Jadzia for all of her Curzon-like tendencies. You drink too much, you gamble too much, you're loud, you're rowdy. Who are you to judge me when you're like the worst Trill, the worst joined Trill in the history of joined Trill, but for some reason you're in charge of judging me. In the meantime, there's like this universe that's like a little universe, but it's expanding, and they got snagged on it on their way through the wormhole or something, and it's going to destroy everything, and they need to send it back. So I think neither of those storylines are very interesting, or at least the way they were portrayed. I don't care about this initiate. I don't care whether or not he gets joined. I don't even know this dude. I don't care about Jadzia's insecurities with Curzon. Also, by the way, don't you have all of Curzon's memories in the Trill? So like, don't you already know why he dismissed you? And this whole episode, she's just like, I never knew why Curzon, I just don't know why Curzon didn't like me. And I'm like, but isn't all his memories and feelings and past and everything inside of you, can't you just access it? So now this is like a little bit confusing about what the Trill can and can't do. Because why is this still a mystery? Like, you are Curzon, you're quick to pour out like, remember when we did this, remember when we did that, and I signed the treaty of XYZ, like you have all those memories. So it just didn't ring true. And also, who cares? Like, you're joined now. So who cares what Curzon thought? He was wrong. You know what I mean? So yeah, the whole episode, I just was like, yeah, I was just not into it. I was just not into it. But I, again, love learning backstory about Trill. And then the proto-universe thing was such a side issue. It was such a B plot, but it wasn't even a great B plot, because it was like, oh, it's expanding, we have to get rid of it. But that whole expansion, we have to get rid of it, I think was in the last 5 or 10 minutes of the episode. So there's like 40 minutes of this, like, do I deserve to be a joined host, coming from both of them, both Jadzia and the Initiate, whose name I don't even remember. And then the last 10 minutes or whatever, it's like, oh, we're all going to be destroyed. We should do something about that. And then they just hop in the shuttle and they just like send it back. They do something about it. Easy. So I don't know. Neither of the episodes felt like they had enough meat on the bones, I think, for my liking. But those are my thoughts on that second episode. Before I go to my third bottom episode, and then we'll switch to the top episodes, I'm going to check the chat, and then we'll go to episode number 3. Let's see. This episode is the one that, oh, sorry, that was back with the last episode, which I did not love. The only palatable one-ish, but the characterization of women is still not great and highly sexualized. Yep, that sounds about right. You said it, boring episode. You're right, that's a boring episode. Okay, well, so it wasn't just me. Maybe if they would have made Jadzia a sex kitten yet again, maybe then they would have been like, oh, this is gold. This is all we need. We don't need the character to do anything or learn anything or have any objectives other than leaning over in a really seductive way. There just weren't enough in the way of high stakes to make this episode worthwhile. It was a filler. Yeah, the Initiate was whiny. And I didn't want to root for him. I don't know about you guys, but I was not like, come on, Initiate. I hope he gets it. I hope Jadzia likes him. I was just like, who is this dude? Why should I care? Oh, look, I don't care. You know, I don't know. The emotional stakes were not there for me either. Like, for him to win or whatever. I love the idea of the little universe that could, but it was so wonky and so poorly explored. Yeah, the little universe that could was like, it was a B plot, but it felt a little more like a C plot for how much screen time it got. It was like, oh, it's growing. Oh, it's growing more. We need to like release it so it can grow fully. And then what they do is they just kind of like, they go through the wormhole, and I think they just like shoot it out into the Gamma Quadrant. And they're like, go on, little buddy. But I was like, wait, if this is a universe growing, won't it displace any universe it's in? Like, but I guess they were trying to say they're putting it back. I don't know. It doesn't even matter. Doesn't even matter who. Moving on. Let's talk about my third least favorite episode from season 2 before we switch over to episodes I actually super loved. Season 2, episode 4, Invasive Procedures. During a plasma storm evacuation, a group of mercenaries led by a Trill named Varad seizes the nearly empty station. Varad forcibly removes the Dax symbiont and implants it into himself, threatening Jadzia's life. Ultimately, Sisko and the crew are able to retake the station, and the symbiont is returned to Jadzia with no harm done. So 2 of my bottom episodes happen to be Dax episodes, which is maybe not surprising. Let's start with what I liked about this episode. I liked that we had mercenaries being run by a Trill, and like the most seemingly insecure Trill in all of Trilldom. I thought that was a fun twist. You know, he's got like whatever that woman was. I don't remember. I don't think she was human, whatever she was. And then like some Klingons and stuff. I like that idea of this like head of this criminal little gang, but they seem very unassuming and you would never guess it was them. So I like that. We also get some more Trill backstory about the fact that this dude, Varad, was apparently in line for the Dax symbiont, but was washed out of the program like Jadzia. And he's got a grudge on his shoulder. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's like, that was my symbiont, not yours. And I'm going to get him back. So that was interesting to see like more of the politics behind how these symbionts are like, implanted into whoever. And then I think it was it was interesting that when the symbiont was put into Varad, he got a whole new haircut. Not only did he have more confidence, but he literally looked different. Like they made the actor look extremely different, and he stood up tall, and the way he was all buddy with Cisco, and he was like, I have all of Curzon's memories. Hey there, remember that time when, or whatever. I liked that. I liked how they showed his personality change being so dramatic. So those are the things I liked. The things I did not like. I kind of don't ever like it when they pop the little symbiont out of a body because it's gross, but that's like not going to make it a bad episode. It's just a moment I don't love. I think the reason why this episode is low is because the stakes are so low. They're saying like, if you take the symbiont from Jadzia, she could die, and it's integrated with her entire physiology and blah, blah, blah. And if you remove it, she won't survive. And so they try to make it like the stakes are so high, but I feel like Jadzia's, and maybe this is the only time, but it feels like Jadzia loses the symbiont all the time, or could lose it at any time. And she seems just fine. Like she honestly seems fine. And I think they're like, oh, we have to get it back into her as soon as possible. She'll only survive for a few hours. And I think that timeline of like only for like 8 hours or whatever it is, the timeline is so big also that the stakes seem pretty low. There was no part of me that thought that Jadzia was actually in danger at any point. And his whole big plan was like, we're going to go to the Gamma Quadrant, and I'm going to spend my days there living as the joined person I was meant to be. So he's going to take his little crew. I think he's just going to pay off all the Klingons and stuff. And then the woman whose name I don't remember, his like second in command, is his girlfriend. And she's helped him do all this stuff because he saved her life in some way. And now she feels like she owes him her life. Plus she's in love with him. So they had this agreement that they were going to meet on some rendezvous in some place, like some moon or something like that. And they were going to go and like live their best lives. But now that he has a symbiont, he's changed the plan. And now he's going to like have her go to the moon, and he's going to go off and do something else. Because now that he has a symbiont, he's like bigger, better than ever. And he's so smart, and he has everything he's ever wanted. And now he's going to like go conquer the world. By conquer, I mean run away to the Gamma Quadrant, never to be seen again. So he's going to take this symbiont, not just from Jadzia, but from like all of Trill, right? He's going to take it out of the population. We've already established there's only a handful of these symbionts. I guess they don't breed that often. And I forget they said the number, but it was like some really big number of the amount of Trill hosts compared to the amount of symbionts. Like there was just so few of them. Only a small handful are able to be joined. And so he was going to take this one away from all of Trill just so that he could have it. And so he could feel big and important. Which just seems like super selfish, but not very sinister. Do you know what I mean? So if we're talking about stakes, I want, I don't know. I don't know what could fix this episode. I don't know what would make it more engaging or interesting. It's a chance. So yeah, it's just, those are my thoughts. Now I'm just going to ramble and just like start picking it apart. And I don't think that's really fair. But those are my thoughts on this episode. Didn't love it. And so far, like, I just haven't been loving the Dax-centered episodes for season 1 and season 2. But hopefully that will change, and I will have more joy for some Jadzia episodes. Okay, I'm going to check the chat, and then we're going to go to the next episode on the list, which is one of my top 3 episodes. There were a handful of episodes I really liked from season 2, but there was an easy 3 that I picked out. And I would love to hear your thoughts on tops as well. Okay, so let's see. Yes, exactly. I'm sensing a theme. I know. I didn't even realize it until I was preparing for this conversation. I was like, dang, Jadzia made 2 of the bottom 3 episodes. Isn't it amazing how they could so easily take over the station? Yeah. So in this episode, in Invasive Procedures, they took over the station because everybody was away because the station, it was kind of like that Baryon Sweep episode, Starship Mine in TNG, where it was like everyone had to evacuate the station for a reason. And so these people came along and they were like, haha, we got it. And I mean, they immediately captured everyone, and easy, And then he was like, give me the symbiont or else everyone dies. And they're like, okay. I mean, it was just, I don't know. I don't know what I wanted. I honestly don't know what could have made it better. Low stakes episode. Yeah. This is the one with Seska before she was Seska. I don't know if this is the one with Seska. I noticed Seska in the one when they get the Defiant, which I don't think it's this one because they don't get the Defiant until season 3. That's the one where Seska comes as the Romulan. Unless Seska was the girlfriend, which she could have been, and under all the prosthetics, I didn't even recognize her. Totally possible. OMG, the Dax hate. I don't hate Dax. I just don't love these episodes. Although, I don't know, Dax can be a little irritating. But I don't hate Dax. I just don't love these episodes. I love the friendship between Cisco and Dax. Yeah, it's weird, but it's good. I think maybe the challenge I have with Dax is that sometimes she's like, I'm Curzon, I'm one of the guys. And then sometimes she's like, I'm Jadzia, I'm nothing like Curzon. And I kind of feel like pick a lane, you know? Like, maybe it's just me, but that's like my one bone to pick with her, is that I'm kind of like, who are you really? And I get that that's part of the idea of a Trill, is that she is joined, so she is many. But she doesn't really seem like many. She seems like Jadzia or Curzon at any given moment, and not any of the other previous hosts. That's just my thoughts. But I don't hate Dax. I just don't love these episodes. Yeah, where was station security when all this was going on? Yeah, they had like a skeleton crew on the station because of whatever reasons they evacuated. But I think this episode they had like, 5 people? You know, they had like 5 people, I think, that were still on the entire station. So it's really easy to be taken over by these other 5 people. Security, though, I don't know how much they could have done anyways, because security is always kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, this is another episode where the stakes are just too low, and it's totally fine to like Dax. There's nothing wrong with Dax. I'm not sure which one I would replace on your list, but probably adding Second Sight to my least favorite in season 2. Hold on a second. Let me look up Second Sight. Which one is Second Sight? Oh, Second Sight. Oh yeah, the Second Sight is the one with Cisco and the girlfriend who's like a dream. So only when the married woman is asleep, she starts sleepwalking, like her spirit sleepwalks. And it's this really beautiful woman who falls madly in love with Cisco and is willing to do whatever it takes to be with him. I didn't mind that episode. I didn't love like the sexy woman who just wants Cisco, and like all that was just kind of dumb, but also like that's the show, right? That's like the soap opera-ness of the show. But I would say I like the idea for that episode. It probably was on my list before I had to whittle it down. But what I liked about that episode is the idea that when you're asleep, you could have like another version of you who's sleepwalking and living their life. I thought that was really interesting. I didn't like that they made it that if you have the sleepwalking personality and you do it too much, it could kill you. I was kind of like, well, why does it have to do that? Why can't it just be an ability of their people that they can sleepwalk and have another personality? Why do it have to be like, if she keeps sleepwalking, she's going to die? That seemed unnecessary, but I know they just were trying to find a way to keep Cisco single forever, like in season 2. So they were like, they can't be together. So we have to make some obstacles so that the way they have to be apart. And then they made the person, like the wife who fell asleep, totally different personality from who she was when she was asleep, like the spirit walker version of her. Different names, different personalities, different memories, different backstories, and everything, which I also felt was like a little extra. Like, I don't know if they needed to do that. I don't know if they needed to be totally different. Symbiotes are like Trill pandas. What does that mean? What do you mean they're like Trill pandas? Ooh, look. Okay, so Big Stretchies has just gifted 1 membership to the channel. Thank you so much. So if you want to become a member of this YouTube channel, now is your time. It is first come, first serve. So get it while it's hot. I like Jadzia Dax a lot. She becomes a fun character. I will have episodes in the future. Actually, I don't know this for sure. I may have episodes in the future that I love that happen to be that have a lot of Jadzia in it, but I don't know if any of like the Jadzia centered episodes are in the top lists. They were just building the Trill world, just this part of season 2. Yeah, I love that they're building the world. I love it. I just think this episode itself was just meh. But I agree the fact that she can't access some of Curzon's memories is convenient. And the whole Curzon Jadzia thing is weird. Yep. The whole Jadzia Curzon thing is weird. I totally agree. Big Stretchies, you're awesome. I totally agree with that as well. Oh, you're paying it forward. I love that. I love that. Okay, so with that said, let's now go to the first episode on the list that I really did like from season 2. So now I can stop complaining so much and we can get into something that I love. Okay, so here we go. Season 2, Episode 13, Armageddon Game. Bashir and O'Brien help two alien races dispose of a deadly biological weapon, only to be targeted for assassination to eliminate the witnesses. These aliens fake their deaths, strand them on a desolate planet, and ruthlessly hunt them down while O'Brien is painfully deteriorating from exposure to the very bioweapon they were trying to destroy.
Okay, so I love this episode from beginning to end. I was so into it, but I'm kind of like an action junkie. Well, sort of. Okay, but it still needs to be a good story. It can't just be like lots of explosions. It still has to be something that is logical, it makes sense, and it's interesting, which is why I didn't super love Section 31, because it had a lot of action, but like it didn't have a lot of substance. This episode I loved. It was so interesting. So there's this bioweapon, there's these two I think I said two warring races, but I don't think they were two warring races. I think they were like the same. It was like a civil war or something. But in any case, they were they had these bioweapons, these terrible, terrible bioweapons. And so Bashir and O'Brien were working together to create this machine that could destroy all the last remaining bioweapons, because they had already had a peace treaty, like everything was good. They just wanted to destroy these weapons so that way it couldn't be used again in the future, which I love this idea. And so they're working together, and finally they succeed. They do it. They find a way to get rid of the bioweapon, and they're all celebrating. And Bashir is like, I'm going to write a paper about this. I'm going to be famous. And O'Brien's like, work well done. Love doing the engineering, like such an interesting engineering problem. So we're thinking everything's happy-go-lucky. Suddenly these people come in and just start blasting away at everybody. And you're like, what the heck is going on? I thought it was like one of the warring people who wanted the biowhips. I don't know. I didn't know why they were shooting. I didn't know what was going on. And you just see like the shock and panic. But here's where we see G.I. O'Brien coming in, and you see like his battlefield training. And I love those episodes when you just see like, oh, right, he is a warrior. He is a soldier. He is a fighter as well as an engineer. He's got more sides to him. So I love when they do that. And he figures out a way to transport them to the planet, but also to like erase the transporter signal or whatever, so they can't immediately track exactly where they went. And they find some like ruins, and he finds some machinery, and he's like, we're going to build a an SOS signal. We're going to build something that connects to our comm badges or whatever to let Starfleet know where we are. So he's trying to figure it out. Meanwhile, he's also been infected because a little drop of the bioweapon landed on him during the huge firefight, and that little drop was enough to infect him. And so he's wasting away. And Bashir can't really help him because it's not like he has I think he does have a medical tricorder with him, but he doesn't have a cure for this particular bioweapon in his back pocket. So he ends up trying to do the engineering stuff, and he's having O'Brien talk him through it. Now, here's the like B plot that I really liked about this episode, is that Bashir really wants O'Brien to like him. He's like, please be my friend. Why won't you be my friend? Why don't you like me? And O'Brien is like, what do you mean, sir? Of course I like you, sir. And he says sir with like the most attitude ever, right? Like he is not a fan of Bashir in any way, shape, or form. And then Bashir is like, you can call me Julian. You don't have to call me sir. And then the way he says Julian with like just dripping with venom and disdain is hilarious. Like every time he says it, like, yes, Julian, I will, Julian. Leave me alone, Julian. I mean, you're just like, oh my gosh, maybe go back to sir, which at the end of the episode, Bashir is like, sir is fine. We could just do sir. You don't need to say Julian, because he says Julian with even more like rage than sir. Anyways, I love that part. And you see the two of them just kind of trying to get along, and Bashir is trying to like do his best, and O'Brien is pretty much just annoyed and also trying to do it all by himself, but he can't do it by himself. He can't both guard the outside and build the little thing and, you know, not die from this disease at the same time. So anyways, we find out that it was actually both governments that put a hit out on O'Brien and Bashir and all of the scientists, because their thinking was, now that we've destroyed all of the bioweapons, we need to destroy everyone who has knowledge of the bioweapons, meaning how what they're made of, their composition, because those people could recreate those bioweapons, either on purpose, like in the future they could become evil, or maybe they're thinking they could be kidnapped and recreate the bioweapons. I'm kind of thinking like this reminded me of their whole thing with the eugenics war, how they're like, there can be no augmented people, otherwise it'll turn into a eugenics war. You know what I mean? Where you're just like, well, that's a leap. You know, an augmented person, eugenics war, yes, the eugenics war was started by people who were augmented, but that doesn't mean everyone who's augmented is going to start a war. That's what this kind of felt like to me, where they were like, well, if you even have knowledge of how to make this bioweapon, someday you're going to make it again. So we have to eliminate all of you. And then the lady who's like comes to finish the job has the nerve to try to talk sense into them, you know, to be like, come on, this is for the best. This is just, we just need to be safe and take it like a man kind of a thing. And you're like, you're trying to sweet talk me into letting you execute me. If you don't get out of here, you don't get out of here with that. So anyways, they come, and then they have like all their weapons pointed at Bashir and O'Brien. Like, no one's going to miss. I don't think you even need 27 guns. Like, there's only 2 people here. But I love the scene where Bashir helps O'Brien stand up, and O'Brien's like, stand me up because I want to go on my feet. Like, I'm not going to be laying down on the ground. I want to see it coming. I think they try to talk some sense into them too. Like, we have no desire to start any kind of conflict. We came here to help you. This is not our fight. Matter of fact, there is no fight because the war has been over, and we just came to help you and to get rid of these bioweapons. So they're like, yeah, we know that, but we just need to be safe. Okay, so here's the other thing too that I was totally surprised by. I didn't see this happening in this episode, guys. So there's a scene where the government talks to Cisco et al., the crew of Deep Space Nine, and they say, we're so sorry, but Bashir and O'Brien were killed in an accident. Like, there was an explosion that O'Brien accidentally tripped. It was some like fail-safe that they didn't know was there, and everybody was lost. And I was like, what? Wait, what? Because at first I thought they were going to say, oh, I'm so sorry, there was like a raid, there was some renegade. I thought they were going to tell the truth that there were these renegades, because I didn't know they were behind it at the time. And then when they were like, yes, here, and I was totally thinking like, no, go and get proof of this, because I know, right? Because I'm the audience, right? I'm like, get proof, make sure that you have, don't just take their word for it. And these people are so thorough. They're like, here's a video recording with proof that that's exactly what happened. They play the video, and it's like exactly what the video shows. I was like, son of a gun. So now everybody on the station's like, well, now we have to mourn Bashir and O'Brien. It was really sad what happened to them. And I was like, oh no, so no one's even going to be looking for their signal. Like, how sad is this? So I'm really watching this episode like, I mean, I know they're going to be okay in the end, but I can't picture how. Like, how is anyone going to know that this is fake, that they're all lying, that they're being hunted down? Like, how is anyone going to find out? So surprise, surprise, it's Keiko who comes to the rescue. She's watching the recording on repeat because she's grieving the loss of her husband. And she goes, look at that. He's drinking coffee, and he doesn't drink coffee in the afternoon or in the evening or whatever. I know my husband. This is fake. This entire thing is faked. He's still out there. And true to Starfleet, tropisms, they just believe her. They're like, well, you know better. Let's just go look. And if we don't find anything, fine. But if we find them, great. You think it's been faked? Let's just go check it out. And I love Starfleet for that. When they're always like, let's just go check it out. Because 9 times out of 10, they should have checked it out. It was something, it was not in somebody's head. It was a real thing. So anyways, that's the only reason they went and checked. And as soon as they went and checked, they were like, oh, here's a signal from Bashir and O'Brien. And plus they saw that there was a transporter signal or whatever that happened after the explosion. So they're like, how could that happen if everybody was dead? So they find them and they transport them out. They beam them onto their shuttle, like right before shots ring out while they're standing in front of this firing squad. And so as soon as they're on board, they're like, get us out of here. And so Cisco's like, they're trying to fly away. And then the enemy ship is like, oh, we're going to have to destroy you. Like, condolences, but we need to keep all this secret. We cannot have knowledge of this bioweapon getting out there. So they're going to destroy Cisco and everybody else on the shuttle just for safeties. So they do. They blow up the whole shuttle. And then they're like, hey, we have record of another shuttle. So apparently they had done some kind of switcheroo where they remote controlled one of the shuttles as a decoy so that they can get away. I didn't see that coming either. Love this episode. I liked the layers of it. I liked seeing where O'Brien and Bashir started as like enemies because we know how like close they become as friends. And then I also liked that it legitimately kept me guessing. Like the whole episode, I was like, well, what's going to happen next? I couldn't figure it out. And usually with these shows, with any shows, if you watch enough, CSI or Law, or, if you watch enough shows, you know exactly how the show is going to go. You know the order, who's going to solve it or whatever. And I didn't. So this episode was great. Okay, I'm going to check the chat and then we'll go to the second episode on the list of episodes I really loved from season 2. And I'm glad we're on to episodes I love, so I can stop complaining about all the things that I think are super dumb. Yes, this is the start of their bromance. Although in this episode, there wasn't much of a bromance. It was just a lot of animosity. And I think it ended on animosity. I think when they got back to the station, Bashir was just like, you can call me sir. And that was like the end of it. It was like, this is not working. Oh boy, there is a movie they're mimicking. Can any of you folk remind me of the movie's name? Ooh, I would say Windgrace, if anybody can remember the movie that this reminds you of. Yay, finally have the backstory for Raynor and Discovery. Wait, is that the backstory of Raynor? Is that what these people are? Because Raynor doesn't have that crazy triangle Dorito hair. Oh, that's so interesting. Is this the only time we see those people? What are they? Not Kelpians, because that's Saru. I don't even remember the name of his species. I love how it builds the friendship between O'Brien and Bashir. I don't want a wife that is that observant. Keiko notices everything. And then the funny thing is, like, this whole thing was solved because Keiko was like, I know my husband. He would never drink coffee after 4 p.m. or whatever she said. And then when she gets him home, it's like after 4 p.m. and he's like, hey, can you make me a coffee? And she's like, Miles, but you don't drink coffee in the evening. And he's like, sure I do. I do it all the time. And she was like, oh, you do? Oh. So, Robert, maybe she's not that observant after all. The alien races and their willingness to kill to sweep their dirty secrets under the rug is chilling and scarily relevant. Yes, terrifying. Captain Ben Maxwell was right. Who is Captain Ben Maxwell? Who's that? Keiko's imperfect memory of their marriage saved them. Yes, 1000%. Keiko's misremembering when he drinks his coffee saved the day. You're not wrong about the eugenics, and they are not wrong about remaking weapons. Yeah, it's totally possible. But I'm glad that they did not eliminate everyone who had knowledge of this weapon. By everyone, I mean Bashir and O'Brien, and I guess Cisco and whoever else came to rescue them. I'm glad they got away, because nobody else, it looks like, got away. It reminds me of the builders and designers from the tomb of China's first emperor being buried with their monarch to keep their secrets of the tomb's design and construction. Ugh. That's why you don't want to do stuff for people. Terrible. That destroyed runabout is coming out of someone's paycheck. Kelleran, that's what it was. Kelleran. Okay. Yeah, they fixed the hair, because the hair was not doing it. But they kept the ears. Okay. I love Raynor. I think that's such a fun character. I mean, he's a grumpy, mean character, but an interesting character. Reminds me of the woman from the movie Airplane who complains that her husband never has cream in his coffee at home. Dang, you know that movie well. It's been a minute since I saw that. That was O'Brien's captain before Jean-Luc. Oh gosh. Do we ever meet that person? Because that sounds like news to me. Yeah. Okay. So here's the second episode on the list for episodes that I really loved from season 2.
Season 2, Episode 16, Shadowplay. Dax and Odo discover a colony where residents are mysteriously disappearing. An investigation reveals that the entire village is actually a holographic simulation created by an old man who didn't want to face life after his real home was conquered. In the end, Dax is able to repair the system and restore the village, and Odo makes a new tiny friend.
So I think this episode is so cute. It's pretty light and fluffy. It's kind of the opposite of the last episode, because Armageddon Game was like this, being hunted down and trying to survive, almost like an apocalyptic feel of an episode. This episode's the opposite. It's just sweet and charming. This little girl is the same little girl from the TNG episode Imaginary Friends, which is so weird to me because she looks younger in this episode than she did in that episode, and she did that one first. So time-wise, or maybe she didn't do that one first. I don't know. But that's the only thing that freaked me out about this episode. I was like, that's the same little girl, but how is she reverse aging? Anyways, this episode's really sweet. I like the holographic village. I like that Dax finds a way to restore them. I love that Odo makes a friend. That's my favorite thing about this episode, is this little girl is just like, Odo, you're the best. She's asking all these really sweet questions about being a changeling. And she's like, changelings aren't real. They never happened. And then she starts telling Odo all these stories that she's heard about changelings, about how they're like, evil monsters or whatever. And I just thought that was really sweet and cute. And then when we find out that this whole village has been replicated from this guy whose entire planet was destroyed by the Dominion, and he crashed here. I don't know if they were destroyed or conquered, but either way, he couldn't go home. And so he recreated home here. I thought was really beautiful. And that he even had a granddaughter, like a holographic granddaughter. That's wild. He had holographic kids and grandkids and just this whole community that he's designed. And Odo and Dax both made the point that they're like AI. They have grown and matured, and they are combinations of people's personalities, that they are their own beings, and they are sentient in a sense. Like they're aware enough to accept the fact that they're holograms, which I also think is wild, because if somebody told me I was a hologram, I would not believe them. Like, maybe if I stuck my hand out of the field and then my hand disappeared, I'd be like, what is going on? But these people were very quick to be like, nah, we're holograms. We're not even real. But she's going to fix this machine so we can stay alive. Like, I don't know if I would have taken it quite as easily as these people took it, but I thought that was really interesting to have, this like holographic community, this whole society that this guy has built. And when they turned the machine off, he was like, okay, game's over. Like, I'm an old man. Like, just leave it off. And I don't know what his plan was, to just stay on this planet by himself, to get on his ship and just go off into space. I don't know. But he was fully ready to not turn the machine back on, And so I love that Dax and Odo were like, no, we're turning the machine back on. Like, we are bringing these people back. These are real people. Even though they're holographic, they have personalities, they have memories, they have fears, they have hopes, they have dreams. They have an entire community here. We're turning them back on, and they will go on, and we're going to fix this power cell or whatever so they can last as long as possible. And I just love that. I don't know. It's really sweet. It's kind of like the Moriarty story from Ship in a Bottle in TNG, but like not so kidnappy. And it gives them a chance to go on for however long the technology will last, for however long the batteries will last, or however it's powered. So even after this one this one biological life form does die, that the holograms will continue on. I think it's a really sweet and beautiful story. Yeah. So that's my thoughts on that episode. I'm going to check the chat, and then we'll go to the last episode on the list that I really loved from season 2. Another fake village episode. They do have a couple of fake village episodes on Deep Space Nine, now that you mention it. I think I like this better, though. Like, this fake village episode style. I think I like this better than like the Fairhaven episodes in Voyager, where it's just like the holographic village in the holodeck that they have to like maintain. I think I like this better, where it's like, it's not contrived by the crew to like keep them from going mad. Instead, they stumble upon a village and it's like, oh, this village isn't real, or this village won't last, or whatever. Yeah, there are a ton of these in Star Trek, but I like this one. I think it's really sweet. Oh, I love this episode. It's goofy as hell. It's pure filler. The kind of episode that modern Trek doesn't tell anymore because of the short seasons. I don't know. I feel like Strange New Worlds has a lot of goofy episodes. So, I don't know. There wasn't anything goofy in Picard, because it wasn't that kind of show. That was a very like dark and serious telling. But I feel like even with the 10 episode caps, Strange New Worlds does have a few episodes that are just goofy, or just silly, or just dumb, or just, just like kind of lighthearted and fun. I know I was just complaining about the Dax episodes that I thought were kind of boring, and we could say those were filler. But these ones, yes, it doesn't have anything to do with the main crew, but I just really like the story. I also liked how in the beginning, that guy who's like the town mayor or whatever was holding Odo and Jadzia, not in prison, but like for questioning, saying that they were kidnapping people. I just thought, I was like, what is going on here? Before we knew they were holographic, I was like, what is the story with this village? I was already engaged. So they did a good job holding my attention from the beginning to the end. Yes, one of my original DS9 memories as a kid was Odo being atop the toy. Yeah, that was really cute at the end when because he had told her she had told him a story about a changeling become a spinning top. Oh no, he told her he would become a spinning top for his friends or whatever, when he was first learning how to change shape, that everybody wanted to change shape all the time. And he was just like, I get tired of doing that. Like, I don't like being a spectacle. And she was like, but you could change shape for me. Wouldn't that be okay? And he's just like, maybe later. And then right before he leaves, he like goes, hey, check this out. And then he spins around and turns into a spinning top. And she's like, wow, yay, Odo. And it's just so cute. Like, Odo has a friend. This is the first time we ever see somebody who likes Odo for Odo and is not trying to get in his pants, Lwaxana Troi. This is the first time where it's just a sweet enjoyment of Odo as a person, which I have to say could really only come from a kid, because he doesn't have a super lovable personality. So like, I'm not surprised that there aren't a lot of people out there on Team Odo, at least not in season 2, because the whole point of his character is to be gruff and to grunt and to arrest people. So I think it's sweet that they paired him with this little girl. It explores the themes of memory, community, and the need for connection with others. Yeah, I kind of love that this guy who was stranded on this planet built an entire community of people who really love each other. Because he could have done anything with that technology, or he could have done nothing. And I like his choices. At least he isn't hurting anybody like Kevin Uxbridge, who genocided the entire Husnock species in grief for his wife. Yeah, he did do that. He did regret that. He could not undo that, which is a shame. And also a question I have, like, why couldn't he undo that? Like, why can't the Q also undo that? Like, why not? If they're all powerful, doesn't that fall under all? So, yeah. In Mass Effect, there was an AI race that is called the Geth, maybe? Geth? The Geth are not robots. They are software programs. They call their robots mobile platforms, and they have intelligence through a hive mind. So they're like Borg, but not Borg. Hey, DJ Magix. Okay, so let's go to Never Change and Stay Nerdy. I can guarantee you of that one. Okay, let's go to the last episode on the list, the last episode from season 2 that I really, really loved.
Season 2, Episode 26, The Jem'hadar. Cisco and Quark are captured by a new powerful enemy called the Jem'hadar while on a trip to the Gamma Quadrant. They learn that the Jem'hadar serve a mysterious race called the Dominion, which controls much of the Gamma Quadrant. In the meantime, Jake and Nog try desperately to repair the runabout so they can go and get help from Deep Space Nine.
I really like this episode. Not only because they introduced the Jem'hadar, but you got to remember watching this show for the first time. If I did not have spoilers already in my mind, I would not know that the Jem'hadar were going to become a thing, right? Like I wouldn't know that at this point, but I do know that they become a thing. So I was so curious to get to this episode. Like while I was watching all of season 2, I was like, but what happens? Like I want to know who are everybody's always like, what about the Jem'hadar? They're so scary and all this stuff. So I was like, let me see who these people are. And I saw the name of the episode was Jem'hadar. So I was like waiting to get to episode 26 so I could see what all the hoopla was about. So I loved the introduction of this species. And I also love this episode in general. So Jake and Cisco are going to do a field trip to the Gamma Quadrant so he can study some plants or something like that for one of his classes. And it starts out really cute where it's going to be like this father-son bonding time. And so Cisco's like, gets onto the runabout and is like, all right, Jake, let's get going. And Jake's all like, well, Nog's coming because Nog's my friend. And, isn't this great? Professor Keiko said we can do our project together. And Cisco's like, great. Because he's not the biggest fan of Nog. And he's like, I wanted to have time with you, not you and Nog, or like more likely you and Nog going off having fun and me just sitting like stoking the campfire or whatever. But he's like, all right, you really want this? This is the only way Nog's going to pass the class or whatever. Fine. So once they're on the shuttle, though, all of a sudden, Quark shows up and he's like, hey, guys, what's going on? I got my luggage and all this stuff. And Cisco's like, what the heck? Now you're coming? And he's like, yeah. So his whole thing is he wants to open up negotiations with people in the Gamma Quadrant to make more profit. So he's coming along too. So now they're camping and Quark is the worst. He is just the worst. He is not good at camping. He's being bitten by all these things. He keeps asking Nog to get him cream for his ears and stuff. And Nog is like so embarrassed. And at one point he just like hisses and runs away because Quark is just being such a diva. And Cisco's annoyed by it all. And Nog's embarrassed and Jake's trying to make the best of it. So Nog runs off embarrassed. Jake runs off to like talk him off the ledge. And while Cisco and Quark are sitting there, this random woman comes up and she's like, help me, they're chasing me. And she like knocks Cisco over with some kind of brain psionic powers or something, some kind of telekinesis. And immediately all of these Jem'hadar just like uncamouflage themselves. They uncloak themselves and they have them all at gunpoint and they arrest them. Okay, so at this point, I'm like, what this will, and mind you, at this point, I don't know anything about the Vorta at all. Just like anybody watching this for the first time would not know. So I'm thinking, first of all, this alien looks super cool. I love this makeup. But also I was like, oh my gosh, the Jem'hadar can cloak their bodies. What the F? I was very much like, okay, these are already kind of unbeatable enemies because you literally cannot see them unless they want you to see them. I'm pretty sure they could shoot you while they're cloaked. There's no reason they need to uncloak before they shoot you. Like these people are unbeatable. You can't scan for them. You can't see them. Like they're really strong and there's like a bunch of them. So anyways, they're arrested and dragged into the prison or whatever. And the woman, the alien woman, has this collar on her neck, and she's like, yes, it controls my telepathic abilities or whatever. And so Quark is trying to pick the lock because he's Quark, and of course he can pick locks. And they're trying to figure out, like, who are these people? Who are the Jem'hadar? Like, what's going on? And so the Jem'hadar are not Quark makes a racket. So one of the Jem'hadar soldiers has to come back there to shut him up or something. And so then they get all this backstory. And the Jem'hadar are like, we're part of the Dominion, we serve the founder, something like that. And so Sisko's like, who's the Dominion? Who's the founders? Like, what are you talking about? And they're just, you just see that they're strong and inflappable. And that's kind of our take home story. And we're like, how are they ever going to get out of this? So meanwhile, on the runabout, Jake and Nog are over here trying to like figure out a way to make the shuttle work so that they can do something, so that they can scan for their dad and uncle, so that they can send a message to Deep Space Nine, so that they can do anything. And they can't do anything. So first they start talking to the computer, and they're like, computer, send a message, computer, scan, computer, get us home. And everything they say, the computer's like, great, give me your security clearance and I'll get right on that. And they're like, oh, because they don't have any clearance for anything. So Jake is like, oh, but I've been working with Chief O'Brien for the last few weeks to learn about engineering. So I know about a bunch of parts of the ship. So maybe I can like hotwire it. So basically he just starts pulling out stuff from the ship, right? Pulling out wires and isolinear chips and everything else. And every time he turns something off, it makes the ship work a little bit less. So it makes it even harder for them to communicate anyone. The ship can't move. They're a sitting duck. The whole time Nog is like, just get us out of here. Like, I don't want to rescue anybody. Just get me out of here. I want to save myself. And Jake's like, no, we have to go back. We have to save my dad. Which is just, it's just the Jake and Nog show and their shenanigans, which is always cute. Anyways, somehow Sisko and Quark and Random Lady escape. They all get back to Deep Space Nine. I think maybe a shuttle from Deep Space Nine comes to find them for some reason. Maybe they've been gone for too long. I'm not sure why they came back to find them, but for some reason they come back, they find them, they beam them up, they all make it back to Deep Space Nine. And maybe you guys remember, because I don't freaking remember. But anyways, they're on Deep Space Nine and they're talking about everything. And then this Jem'hadar beams themselves onto the bridge, or not the bridge, into ops for Deep Space Nine, just in front of everybody, like just beams right through the shields or whatever else they have going on. And they just show up. And I was like, oh my gosh, they can just beam through shields. And I don't remember if they beam through shields, but I feel like they beam through shields. It was something really impressive. And then they put a force field around the Jem'hadar, like a force field that's like skin tight. And it was the highest level force field they could find or whatever. And the Jem'hadar is like talking all this trash. And then he just walks through the force field. You guys, when I tell you, I lost my mind at that scene, because I was like, only the Borg can do this. Only the Borg can walk through force fields. And they can't do it the first time. They need to adapt. You know what I mean? Like, they'll hit a force field a couple times and they'll be like, doop, doop, doop. And then they'll just like, the green force field will come up and they'll walk through a force field. But like, they take a little bit of time. The Jem'hadar just like looked at it and walked through it. I was like, okay, yes, very unbeatable. They're checking all the boxes of being totally unbeatable. So I was like, this is a serious threat. And I'm glad. A lot of people have talked about how the Borg were not in DS9 and how like, oh, I wish they would have been there. I want to see how Sisko would have handled it or whatever. And then a lot of other people are like, they had enough going on DS9. They did not need the Borg. I feel like the Jem'hadar is such a glow up to the Borg. Like, so interesting. And actually not a glow up to the Borg. They're a glow up to the Klingons, because they're warriors and all of this, but they're genetically engineered to be that way. We don't know any of this right now in season 2. We just know this is the new big bad. Super intimidating opponent. And then Quark finds out that the collar that he pocketed because he thought there could be some money in it was just like a useless collar. It was just a straight up like dog collar. There was nothing in it to prevent anybody from using any powers. So the woman totally lied about it. She wasn't being held prisoner. This was all a big con. And so when Sisko confronts her with it, she's just like, yeah, I'm part of the Dominion and I was just checking out your forces. Anyways, later, and beams herself off. Her and the Jem'hadar just beam themselves back to wherever they came from. And you're like, what the heck? Where do they even go? Where's their ship exactly? Is it in the Alpha Quadrant? Is it in the Gamma Quadrant? How good is this technology? So many question marks. And now you're like, oh, and you're sneaky. Now we know you're sneaky. You know, it'd be like you did this whole big ruse just to find out things about us in a super sneaky way, which is also interesting because they have the changelings who could do all of this so much more easily because they're changelings. But the changelings have set up things in such a way that they don't have to be bothered with this nonsense. Once again, I don't know any of this yet in season 2. Actually, I do know because I had a spoiler that the changelings were the founders. Somebody had told me that. But at this point, when I was watching, like, that's obviously not obvious at all in this episode. Such a good one. Such a great season finale. Because now I'm like, I want to know everything about the Jem'hadar. And I definitely feel like at this point in my rewatch of in my first watch of Deep Space Nine, I'm finding out all that I ever wanted to know about the Jem'hadar. Like, they did not leave us hanging on that. They keep going and keep going and keep going with more and more information about this particular villain. I think it's wonderful. The Jem'hadar and the Vorta, just like great bad guys, great recurring bad guys. So interesting. They have layers, they have dimensions. We find out more, like, they're not just this one note character who just comes and blows stuff up, which I love. Okay, I'm going to check the chats and then tell you some of the things that I found that were surprising. Also, Sela mentioned earlier that one of her favorite episodes was Whispers. So let me see what Whispers was. Someone had also mentioned the Maquis. I also like the Maquis. I thought that was so good to get the backstory because now Voyager makes so much more sense. Whispers. O'Brien returns from an away mission to discover that he's been locked out of every... Oh, yes. It was when O'Brien, like the O'Brien duplicate or clone or whatever. Yeah, that was a good one. That was super creepy. And I was so confused. You know what? I was so confused on Whispers. I had to watch the end of the episode twice because I watched it and I was like, what just happened? Because they revealed the real O'Brien in the last, I think, like 3 minutes of the episode, 2 or 3 minutes of the episode. And then they give a quick explanation of what was really going on. And I was just like, I didn't even understand what they just said. I had to rewind and watch it one more time and be like, okay, so is this not, so who's the not O'Brien? Why was he made? What was going on? Yeah, that was a good one. Okay. Imagine the holograms as software programs and the holographic construct as their mobile platform. Okay, I understand. I understand what you're saying. They still do sound a little bit like Borg, though. When Grace says Jake caused the Dominion War. How did Jake cause it? Just by going on a field trip? But the field trip was Sisko's idea, so maybe Sisko caused the Dominion War. I love Quark's speech about humanity. I do not remember said speech about humanity, but I bet it was good. The Jem'hadar are a bunch of junkies. They are a bunch of junkies, but that's not their fault. They were genetically engineered to be a bunch of junkies so that they could be controlled, which is so messed up. And then they were genetically engineered to not mind being controlled, which I guess makes sense. So at least they're not all suffering. You know, some of them don't want to be controlled. But for those who are like the traditional, you know, straight out the package version, they were created to be servants and they're happy with that lot in life. So, because they were also created to be happy about it. And I guess the Vorta as well were created to be happy about being Vorta. Not totally sure. We'll find out when I finish the show, I guess. I feel like a DS9 rewatch now. I recommend it. I will say, actually, let me finish reading this and then I'll give you some of the things that were surprising because I was going to say something that surprised me about watching this show. It was one of the stepping stones in Nog's development. I really like this episode. Yes, it was where Nog kind of started to be like, I don't want to be like my uncle because he's kind of a jerk. You know, like this is where we first start seeing that. And we already knew that Quark was not like the best person in the world. But this is the episode where you see Nog starting to pull away from Quark and being like, I don't want to be like Quark. Like, I just want to have fun. I just want to go camping. You know, I just want to look at plants. Why are you being such a diva? Which I also just, I super love Nog. He's so sweet. The Vorta lady was really cute. It was a shame she's only one episode. See, I was going to ask that question too, because I was like, why doesn't she come back? Okay, so somebody in my like Trek Tuber group had posted all these pictures of like of action figures of just like random Star Trek action figures, and one of the action figures was Wei Yun. And at the time when I saw this picture, I had just seen the episode with Wei Yun, and there was only one that season. And I was like, wow, this character must have made a really big impact for them to have an action figure based off of a character that was only in one episode. And then, lo and behold, Wei Yun came back. And I was like, what the heck? And then they were like, oh, yes, we're all clones. So that's why there can be more than one of us. I was like, clever. Because they must have really liked Jeffrey Combs in that role. And they were like, we just need him back. So just write it that he comes back. They must have just really loved him in that role or something. I don't know the backstory because y'all know I don't read all the interviews and stuff like that of what was going on behind the scenes. But that's my guess is they just love that character. They said we need it back. So then when I found out that these characters can just keep coming back, I wanted this lady to come back. And now I know she doesn't come back. But I really want this. I kept like looking for her to come back and to be like, aha, it's me again. Because I thought that'd be perfect. And in that episode where I forget what it's called, but it's like maybe it's the beginning of season 5 or something, but they're like Cisco and crew are trapped on some planet, and then there's also like a Dominion ship that's trapped, and like the Vorta and the Dominion are trying to get in, and Cisco's trying to keep them from getting in, and there's that woman Vorta there. I thought that would have been a perfect place for her to come back and be like, we meet again, Ben Cisco. Like, that would have been perfect. Man, I wish they could have gotten her, but okay, now I know she's only in the one episode. I feel like they should have brought her back. Iggy Pop is the greatest of all Vorta. The Vorta are so interesting. Obedience is victory. Victory is life. Exactly. Blood Oath is fun, but it probably only hits if you're a TOS fan seeing a big reunion crossover. Was Blood Oath in season 2? Because that's a Jadzia episode I actually liked. Oh, yes. Okay. That was episode 19. Okay, so here's an episode. I talked about 2 Jadzia episodes that I did not care for. Blood Oath, I really liked. And that was a Jadzia episode. I really enjoyed that episode. I didn't have any of the TOS context, but it was just interesting. I love seeing these old Klingons who are like going in for one more battle. I love seeing Jadzia be like, you know, bringing out Curzon's love of Klingon things and stuff like that. I think that was a really interesting episode. I also love seeing Jadzia's wrestling with the idea of like, okay, the Blood Oath, we have to go and kill a bunch of people, but Starfleet says you can't go and kill a bunch of people. So like, how does that work? That was a really good episode. And that definitely was on my top list before I had to whittle it down to 3. Yes. Live long Nog. Yes, he is totally a chameleon. I was today years old when I found out that he also played Brunt, Liquidator Brunt. I was like, what? I didn't, it was just like in the, you know, when they show the, like the names of the cast as the show was starting. And I was like, that was Brunt. He was Brunt this whole time. That was a total surprise to me. Yeah. The 3 Klingons in that episode are the 3 main Klingons from TOS. And the first time we saw them as bumpy-headed Klingons. Oh, so the Klingon look that we have in DS9 showed up at some point in TOS. I just assumed they were all, you know, white guys with beards in TOS because I recently saw the Trials or I was watching Trials and Tribulations, and I watched the Tribble episode for TOS first, like in preparation, which turns out I didn't need to do that because it's all the exact same episode. So I didn't know that they ever had Worf looking like Klingons in TOS. Okay, so those are my 3 lowest and my 3 highest, and then some of the things that I found surprising. And if you're watching late, you can like rewind and go back to the beginning. And then if you're watching on the replay, there's timestamps below so you can skip ahead. So one of the things I found really surprising about this show is the sheer amount of times they eat and drink on their consoles. It stresses me out. I'm like, who drinks a full freaking Raktajino over like a technical panel, over an electric panel? It just is crazy to me. And I think they have chairs, but clearly they don't have side tables. I think they just need like some cubby holes or something. I don't know. This is a very practical thing, but every time I see them doing that, I'm just like, what are y'all doing? Do we not remember what happened to Sonia Gomez when she replicated a hot chocolate in engineering and spilled it all over Captain Picard? Because who drinks hot chocolate in engineering? You know what I mean? So that's one of the most surprising things one of the surprising things that I've been noticing while I'm watching Deep Space Nine. Like, why are they all eating and drinking over their panels? They're just like crumbs, liquid. Like, none of this is a problem. Another thing that I was really surprised about currently right now, I'm in season 6 of watching through Deep Space Nine, even though today's conversation is just about season 2. One of the things that I found surprising is that for season 5, I really enjoy all the heart-to-heart conversations so far. And season 6 so far too. I'm just a couple episodes in, but I really like all the heart-to-hearts, which you think would be so boring, right? It's just 2 people sitting in a cave, or just, you know, 2 people, sitting in quarks or whatever, and they're just sitting there and talking. You would think that would be a really boring scene. Or like I talked about last week with that episode with the Cardassian prisoner who was pretending to be somebody else, and most of the episode was just them talking to him in his cell, and that was like 80% of the episode. It's like that, where it's like they're just talking, but I'm so into it. Like, I am so here for it. I love their heart-to-hearts. I love when they have it out. I love when they're really disagreeing, or when they're just like sharing things that are hard to say. I'm like really here for it. And that's surprising, because I mentioned earlier, I love action and adventure and like great stories and stuff like that. And you think 2 characters sitting and having dinner and talking is not a great story. But at least in season 5 and for the first few episodes of season 6, I am legitimately enjoying the times when they're just sitting talking. They're not doing anything. They're just talking, which is a big surprise. Okay, so those are my current surprises. I'm going to check the chat one last time and then ask that you definitely subscribe if you haven't already, because next week we're going to be talking about my highs and lows from season 3 of Deep Space Nine. If you have any favorites from this season that I did not mention, definitely let me know in the comments below and let me know why you love that episode, because I love to hear it. Her grubby little hands, you're so funny. Let's see. Okay, so I had some questions about the DS9, how about the TOS look for Klingons. DS9 took one of the worst creations of TNG and made them great. Are you talking about the Ferengi? Because I agree with that. Yeah, I totally agree with that. The 3 Klingons. Oh yeah, you said that one. I just missed one. Do you think they had Klingon plastic surgery? I hope so. They were just guys with beards, but it's the same actors that got a glow up. Oh, okay. So they were just guys with beards, but they made them look Klingon, and it's the same actors. That's pretty cool, because in the Trials and Tribulations, that was the same actor, right? Who was the undercover Klingon, which was just a guy who shaved his beard. He totally pulled a Clark Kent right there. No one knew it was him. And I think they got the same actor, right? Just older. I thought that was really cool. I like their homage to TOS in that way. They are smooth forehead types in TOS. And then they didn't even bother to answer that, right? They had Worf go back and they were like, Worf, how are those Klingons? And he said, there's an explanation, but we do not speak of it. It was kind of like, okay, that's a total cop-out, but from the writer's perspective, it's better to just say we can't speak about it than to give some really stupid explanation that everyone's going to hate, which I guess could have been an opportunity in Discovery. When they had the Klingons that everybody was so pissed that they didn't look like Klingons, that could have been an opportunity to just have like guys with beards, I guess, who turned into Klingons. I don't know. By the way, I'm glad they didn't do that, because that would have been even more dumb. You're complaining about drinks, but rocks are cool. What do you what do you mean? Oh, that the rocks are in the panels, but the rocks are in the panels. They're not falling on the panels unless there's an explosion. Yeah, the panels blow up frequently and are full of rocks. No, I would agree that the rocks are not a good call to put in your panels, and I would say drinks are not a good thing to put on your panels. And then Sonia Gomez put her grubby little hands all over my hubby to try to wipe the drink off him, trifling woman. Yeah, because you can clean off hot chocolate just with your bare hands. Just if you scrub, you can just get that hot chocolate right off. Yeah, it's like they pumped the panels full of shrapnel just in time for things to get blown up. The more you know all the DS9 characters, the better it gets. All have great chemistry and character development. I will say, I am enjoying this. Is not so much a surprise, because I knew it was, or maybe it is a surprise. I knew it was long form storytelling, but I am enjoying the character development, which you can only do in a long form storytelling format. Like if you, and I talked about this last week about the whole Monster of the Week episodes. It's really hard for you to change your main characters because they need to still be able to fit in these environments that keep changing. But if you have a story that continues from episode to episode, then your characters can grow and develop as they deal with the new environments, which is absolutely what DS9 is doing. And I love that, especially like one of the characters. So I told you guys last week, for anyone who was there, that I love Nog. Like I love this character. Every time he smiles, it just makes my heart so happy. Even when he smiles, when he's up to mischief, it just makes my heart happy. One of the characters I did not super love was Rom, his dad. And it took all the way until season 4 for me to warm up to Rom. And that's because they started giving Rom more things to do. He wasn't just like this lovable buffoon. They started giving him more thoughts and opinions and abilities. And, they start to grow out the character. And so I start to like him more. And I think that is not only a saving grace for DS9, but something really special. Because we don't get to see it in all the Star Treks. We don't get to see all the characters develop. Sometimes it's like, in Voyager, we get to see B'Elanna grows quite a bit. The Doctor grows quite a bit. Janeway doesn't change at all. She's the same person. Tom grows slightly. Harry Kim, exactly the same. Chakotay, exactly the same. Tuvok, exactly the same. So they don't all get a chance to change, but I feel like for Deep Space Nine, and I don't know if they all are going to get a chance to change, but the changes that they've made definitely make me like the characters more, for sure, over time. Totally agree with that. The Odo and Dax holographic village had me question if that guy will be referenced in a future series, with how he programmed them to have kids with a mix of parental programs. That would be super interesting. I like that idea. That'd be super interesting. Yes, I love the development of Ferengi in Deep Space Nine. I do too. I did not like the Ferengi in TNG at all because they were so dumb. And every time you see them, they're so dumb. And so when they decide to make them as regulars for Deep Space Nine, I was like, oh gosh, here we go. And granted, all the Ferengi focused episodes are pretty dumb. They're pretty goofy and silly. But man, talk about a glow up. The Ferengi have so much depth. There's culture, there's backstory, there's all their rules of acquisition, there's how they interact with each other and the Nagus and all the things, like infinitely more interesting. Such interesting characters. I cannot imagine Deep Space Nine without Ferengi. Like without Quark, this show would not be this show. It's like imagining the TNG crew without Deanna Troi or without, like without one of the like central characters that make up the group. Even if they don't have a lot of episodes centered around them, it's like they are part of the group. So yes, I am so thankful that DS9 was able to save Ferengi and make them something super interesting and not just leave them as buffoons forever. Modern Trek has a lot of sparks from ceilings. So I think, are you saying that they are not able to do the things that they really want to do because they have they're more limited? Yes, the Tribble knew it was him. Exactly. The Tribble knew it was a Klingon, even without the beard. Did not fool that one Tribble, that one clever Tribble. They explain the Klingon forehead stuff in ENT. No spoilers for you. Oh, they do explain it. Do they explain it in a way that makes sense, or is it really dumb? Because if it's really dumb, it might be better not explaining. I'm thinking of the Q and Guinan beef, like the Q and Guinan drama, how they never explained that. And that they never so when Whoopi Goldberg did that scene where she does that to Q, like the fingers thing, they just told her, you really hate this character, go. Like that's all the backstory they told her, and that's what she did in her acting. So they didn't tell her like this is what he did to you, or they didn't give them either actor any backstory about why there was such a beef. And that's something they can always create later, but I like that it was left a mystery because I feel like if they explained it, it'd be dumb. So let me know if the Klingon forehead explanation is dumb or not. And I will find out myself when I get to Enterprise, but I'm just curious. Captain Nog, can't wait to see if they give more details in Academy about him and the fate of Cisco. Yeah, I'm such a fan of Nog. I would love to see more, like to find out more about what they, and I know the actor who played Nog has passed away, but I would love to see more about what his story was in memoriam, especially in Academy is taking place in the far future. So it's all going to be way back in the day. This is what happened. They don't have to. I'm not going to hold Academy to just Easter egg, Easter egg, Easter egg. Like they are free to come up with new ideas and new characters and new stories. Please do. And if they're going to go over some old stuff, like I'd be curious also to find out what happens. I don't totally know what happens to Cisco though, because I haven't gotten that far. So no spoilers. Good thing the writers never give an explanation. Whistles. Okay, Nadia spilled the beans first. Okay, but she didn't really. Yeah, exactly. You didn't really spill the beans by saying it does get answered. You've done that before, Wingrace, where you said like it gets answered in Prodigy. You find out more in Prodigy, and then I'm like, okay, and then I watch Prodigy, and I'm like, that's the explanation. I did find it all out. I'm so glad I watched that because now I have closure. So I don't consider that a spoiler. I know some people don't like the explanation, but I think it's kind of cool. It's been a long road. You guys are so funny. Rom was a fish out of water. When they let him do engineering, he thrived. He really did. He really, really did. No way. I just watched Little Green Men again today. So good. And a Ferengi episode. Yeah, like I don't know. Every time I see the Ferengi episode, part of me wants to be like, this is going to be on my low list. Like I'm not going to like it, but they're always fine. They're never like my favorite episode of the season, but they're never my least favorite episode either. They feel like they're always going to be comic relief. They're always going to be something kind of lighthearted. They're always going to be something interesting. So I've been pleasantly surprised by all the Ferengi episodes because my first inclination is like, this episode's going to be dumb. And then by the end of it, I'm like, oh, no, that was actually interesting. And I will probably say that Little Green Men is probably my favorite of the Ferengi episodes so far. Because I thought it was interesting. I liked some of the things it did. I was shocked when Odo showed up in that episode. I was really like, what? I didn't see that coming. Deanna Troi was a terrible counselor. I mean, she was maybe not the best ship's counselor, but she was a pretty good counselor to the captain. I think she was a good captain's counselor. I think Guinan was a good ship's counselor. I like how they started to grow Rom's character based on the fact that Nog, the son, inspired the father instead of the other way around. Yeah, that is pretty sweet. And I think that I'm just glad that they evolved Rom's character, because Rom was just the worst. I don't know if he's on my if there's a Nog episode on my lowest list from next week, so I'll probably repeat this, but he just felt like Yogi Bear in space. You know, he's just going around filling picnic baskets. I'm like, what is he doing? He just seemed so superfluous. And I know he was there for comic relief, but I just didn't. Every time he came on screen, I was like, oh, here we go. And once they did push him, give his character a little more to do and transfer him to engineering, which I think did not happen until season 4, then I was like, okay. Yeah, and I thought he just got more interesting. Not that I have to always see him doing engineering, but just to see there's more to him than just like these silly one-liners and him just standing around being confused. I like that they did that. I appreciate that. They didn't have to do that. They could have left him just that way, but I like that they did that. I also like that Morn never speaks. I think that's a fun trope. It totally reminds me of Maggie Simpson. And I like that he's just always around. He's just always hanging out, and that they have these wild stories about him. Like Morn ran into the temple naked saying we're all going to die. I can't believe it. I like that. I like what they're doing with Morn. I think he's more fun to watch than Rom was to watch in season 2, for sure. The Magnificent Ferengi is a great episode. I think that's the one I just watched today. I just don't think Ferengi episodes are going to be my favorites, but they're also not my least favorites, which is a surprise because I thought for sure they would be. That's why I was happy it wasn't me for the first time. Yeah. So anyways, I think that's it for me. Okay. I've talked a lot about my most favorite and least favorite things from season 2 of Deep Space Nine. Next week, I'll be talking about my most and least favorites from season 3. And I will say for, I think season 3, 4, and 5, I had more than 3 favorites. So somehow I brought it down to my top 3 and an honorable mention. So I made it only 4. I didn't go all crazy with my least favorite episodes. I didn't go crazy with that, but there was a lot more favorite episodes as the seasons go on. And then season 5, I liked almost every episode. Actually, I think I did like every episode. There was no episodes that I clearly was like, oh my gosh, this is boring. Oh, this is stupid. I don't care about this. I legitimately liked every episode. So my 3 lowest for season 5 are just my least favorite of the things that I already liked. So that was pretty impressive. I thought that was going to continue for season 6, but it hasn't. So far in season 6, there are a lot of episodes on my least favorite list. So it may just be because I'm having a terrible week in a terrible mood. And maybe season 6 is going to just knock it out of the park as I keep going. But season 5 was awesome. Season 6 is less awesome so far for me. But we will see where we get when we get there. My goal is to finish all of them so we can do each week, review another season of Deep Space Nine. I cannot wait to see what happens to these characters, whatever's going to happen with Cisco. I love seeing Nog in his little uniform. It gives me life. I just love that so much. The Jadzia and Worf thing, whatever. I'm glad Worf has found somebody. I don't know how I feel about this relationship, but we need a little more time, I think, on that. Yeah. I think that's it. I love that Jake's a writer. I love that he's a journalist. And there's some episodes, I think next week, there's a couple of 2-parters that I'm there's several 2-parters that are a great episode, but there's 2 parts. So I may have more than 6 episodes is what I'm saying moving forward. I'm going to have 7 or 8 episodes in the next couple of weeks. Anyways, be sure to subscribe so that way you will get notified next week when I go over season 3 of Deep Space Nine. Thank you everyone for coming. Yeah, seasons 4 and 5 are awesome. Yeah, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you for everyone who's watching on the replay, and I will see you all next week.